Hi, everyone, and welcome to the ODSC Lightning interview, a new concept we're trialing today and for the next few months. Hope everyone is having a great Wednesday. And as we progress with this interview, don't forget to say hello and introduce yourself and tell us about where you are, who you are, and what you're working on. And today I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ken Jee, Ken, who's a data scientist and sports analyst expert with Scouts Consulting Group. Now, Ken gave a fantastic presentation at ODSC West a month ago on how to build your brand as a data scientist. So I was very excited to invite him back and to expand on that topic. Ken.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I got really amped up. The intro music was pretty good. I was kind of cool. Bumping my head over here.
That's how I got distracted. That's good. So Ken, tell us a bit about yourself, and if you don't mind, a bit about how you became a data scientist, your journey.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the head of data science at Scouts Consulting Group. So there we help athletes and teams improve their performance by analyzing the data that's collected on them. So it's one specific vertical within sports analytics where we're focused exclusively on performance and helping players and teams win effectively, right? How do you increase the win percentage by a couple percent here and there, and that equates to dollars and cents in the organization eventually. And it's funny, I got my start in data science through sports. So I had no interest in programming, math, any of these things to start out with.
Right.
But I loved competitive sports. So I played baseball until I blew out my shoulder, and then I played competitive golf for a long time. And in college, when I was playing, I just kind of hit a slump. I hit a lull, and I was coincidentally also taking an economics course, and we were learning about some like basic training data. I also took a stats course, so I was learning about standard deviation. And I said, hey, maybe I can apply some of this to my golf game. I wonder if I could get better if I just started tracking my data and looking at it in just a slightly different way. And that was something that differentiated me from my peers. I saw a clear impact of a positive impact on my performance from just doing really light analysis. Like looking back at what I did then with the eyes and the perspective that I have now, I'm like, wow, that was really basic, but it helped, it worked. And I slowly got more and more interested in how the statistics impacted my performance. And as I got going further, I started getting really interested in other things like professional sports and trying to evaluate the performance of those players. And the tools that I needed to be able to build models like that were far upgraded from what I needed to just evaluate my own game. So I made this transition from descriptive statistics, just looking at central tendency in my own game, to predictive statistics, trying to predict outcomes of fantasy football or fantasy golf, which was my favorite at the time. So eventually I found myself accumulating a lot of these new skills. And there was this crossroads where I said, oh my goodness, if I want to build more advanced models, if I want to create more advanced insights, I have to understand math a little bit better. And I also have to learn to program, because everything I was running into said that I essentially couldn't do what I was doing in Excel anymore. I needed more advanced tools. And so I kept chasing this sports and data problem. And I eventually found myself with the prerequisite toolkit for a data scientist, and with a lot of just excitement about a specific problem, which I also think is really important.
And this, by the way, is all on your own, right? None of this is through, this is not through the job. You're doing all this by yourself.
Yeah, I was doing all this by myself, and coincidentally and very fortunately, a couple of my friends, they started this company that was aimed at improving the U.S. Ryder Cup outcomes. So if you look back historically, the U.S. Ryder Cup has very significantly underperformed in the Ryder Cup, which is a team event. It happens every other year. And we pitched them a business case for why analytics could help improve those outcomes.
Yeah.
Eventually, we won that contract. It led to some other contracts and things like that. And over time, that landed me a job in the sports analytics industry. I had some segues.
Who won the Ryder Cup last year? Who was that?
It was the U.S. by the greatest margin ever. Actually,
there you go. So. Billy Bean of golf right here, folks.
Yeah, and so I took some segues. I went and I worked in industry as a data scientist for a little bit. I worked as a product owner, sort of at the intersection
Yeah.
for like one of the data science projects, and then I came back because I love sports, I love this space, and I also had a unique opportunity within this role to both do the heavy quantitative work, but I also get to do all the client-facing work. And we have some really cool clients, if you hadn't guessed. So it's fun to
I
tell
can
the
well
stories to
imagine.
them
Yeah,
and
we're already
learn.
jealous. So no, that sounds fantastic. So you're following your dream, applying data scientist, something you love. And I definitely want to get into the main question here about building the brand, but just to put some context around that. So you've given us a good idea of your passion and your journey here to data science, but give us a little background and on your day-to-day jobs. You're a consultant, which I mean, a lot of cool clients, but a lot of different projects, a lot of challenging projects. So, what does it look like in a day in the life of Ken Jee, superstar consultant to the sports stars?
I
What does that
wouldn't
look
go
like?
that far, but it really depends. So a lot of the times, like I'm scoping projects, so we're gathering requirements from clients. We're trying to understand exactly what value we could create for them. For the most part, all of our projects are unique. We either work with individual players, we work with teams, we work across different sports, and that's something that I'm very focused on golf knowledge, right? That's what my background is in. Let's say
Nice.
hypothetically I have a basketball client. I really have to do a lot of subject area expertise gathering, right? I know basketball as a fan, but I don't know basketball as a player, right? And I have to go through and understand, okay, how do I pick up that nuance that they might understand? And a lot of that's just talking with our clients and getting them to help us understand and meld the data with what they're seeing on the course. I mean, on the court, and what they're experiencing from their end. I should also say I spend a good amount of my time creating content on YouTube and on these other platforms. I completely brushed over that, but I'm probably better known for that. My YouTube presence, my podcast, Ken's Nearest Neighbors. To me, that's another like almost full-time job that I do that I really
Oh,
enjoy.
I would say, yeah.
Um, yeah, and so a good portion of my time is also focused on that, is just thinking and talking with the communities I'm a part of, figuring out what the main problems are for people entering the data science space, or what are the interesting stories associated with data science. For example, very recently there was a little debacle with Zillow that where they lost a lot of money and they were blaming their machine learning models. Trying to
That's right.
understand that from a data science perspective, I think, is a really valuable thing, right? I mean, people are writing off machine
Absolutely.
learning, but is that a machine learning problem, or is it really like a management problem of the machine learning models, right? I mean,
Yeah,
models
I think,
are
yeah.
for the most part objective, right?
Yeah,
So
great use case, and there's still plenty of competitors in the home pricing
exactly,
market out there.
yeah.
So, would love to know, before we get into building your brands, plenty of our audience here are just starting out their data science careers. Some are definitely more experienced than others. But what are some of the biggest mistakes you see beginner data scientists, machine learning engineers, other AI experts make when they're starting out their careers? If you want to touch upon that for a moment.
Yeah, so I think there are two things. So when you're starting out just learning data science, that's fundamentally different than starting out just with your career. I'm actually putting together every year I do a video on how I would learn data science from like starting from
Oh,
zero.
nice.
And so I just put that together. It's very fresh in my mind. It's a good thing, for this conversation, obviously. But really the biggest thing that I see is that people get stuck at the starting line, right? I think it's a really good thing that there are so many resources out there, right? There's infinite
Right.
resources to learn data science, but people really struggle to choose one, right? And my biggest thing is that almost all the resources that I've seen, they're all really good. Like people care, like this community is really good and people are putting out incredible stuff. And it's just a matter of picking something and sticking to it. There isn't something that says just because you learn data science from one resource that you can't learn it from another, right? They're not like mutually exclusive. Learning should be additive. Like I've taken 3, 4, 5 different courses on the exact same thing, so I can learn it from different perspectives, so I can ingrain sort of a deeper knowledge. And people don't realize that. People think that they learn from one resource and it's done. And
Right.
to me, that's
Very good
not how you
point.
learn anything, right? You have to learn from a bunch of different perspectives. So that's probably my best advice for like the actual beginning, starting line of learning data science. For the
Okay.
career, I think that there's another really important element, and the first thing there is that I don't think people treat the job interview process or the like landing a data science job like a data science problem, right? They're data scientists in school, they're data scientists right until they start sending in applications. They're not collecting data on their success rates. They're not looking to see where most of the applicants are applying, like what channels, so they can use different channels. They're not looking at what skills are really in high demand for the positions that they're applying to. And these are all things you can do like quantitatively. Like I can scrape 20 job postings of jobs that I am absolutely crazy about and look at what the similarities are between those postings, what skills they all have in common. It's like, oh, if all of them say, like they're Python coding positions, like does it really make sense for me to include a lot of like R related skills on my resume? Like none of them are looking for it. Like maybe I should cater it in this specific way. And so people tell you to, hey, customize your resume, do this and that. Like, yes, but do it using data, right? Don't just
Yeah,
customize your
excellent
resume
point.
for each one,
Yeah.
right? And I also think, this whole topic is on branding. That to me is the other like co-point for this is that
Yeah.
data scientists, when they start their career, they're doing way too much push and not creating enough pull. And what I mean by that is data scientists, they're just sending out a lot of applications, right? You're kind of needy in the sense that you're going to these companies asking for a job.
Right.
There's a way to get companies to start turning the other direction and asking you about if you're open to work opportunities. And that's by creating a really strong brand, creating a track record, putting things out there so that you are on their radar, right? If I don't put anything on the internet, there's a 0% chance that anyone finds anything that I put on the internet and has the potential to reach out to me, right? If I'm producing
Yeah.
regular things and sharing them, there's a pretty high percentage chance if I'm creating value with those things that someone is going to want to like reach out to me or those types of things get in front of the people that I would like them to, that create value for me in return for me putting this stuff into the world. So I think that so many people, they just get stuck on, oh, I don't want to put this out there, I'm embarrassed of my work, all this stuff. Like if you're a data scientist, you're going to have to share your work anyway. You're going to have to put it out there in front of someone, your manager, whoever this is. There's no reason to be scared about sharing your experiences and your journey.
No, awesome points. And I love this idea of building a brand because advice we hear a lot is build a portfolio page, contribute to open source, get on Kaggle. But let's get into the meat of it. So, what do I do as a data scientist to build my brand? Like, what's your top advice there? Like,
well, so there's a couple different ways you can build a brand, right? And all of it is focused on creating value for other people. So I can create value for other people by just sharing really cool articles that I find on the internet that are relevant to a specific topic, right? You're just aggregating information and people know to come to you for that information, right? So it could be as simple as I have a Twitter account and everything related to the newest like AI robotics, I just retweet those. Like there's a couple of people that have hundreds of thousands of followers, have a really good brand because they're just like condensing information that people find really interesting in a specific niche, and they become that person that they know to go to that person for that type of information, right?
Right.
Another side of that is just sharing your experience. You look at the most successful content creators on the internet, on YouTube, right? They're vloggers, right? They're not people that are experts, right? They're just sharing their experience and what they're going through, and people find value and entertainment in that. They find like a relatability in that. There's something beautiful about sharing your experience. And from a job and employment perspective, if you're sharing your experience with your data science learning journey, companies, recruiters, employers, they see how far you've come, right? There's no reason to delete your first GitHub repo. That just shows, for context, how much personal growth you can achieve in a short period of time. And so that's what a lot of people don't get about sharing your work is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be great. It just has to be trending in the right direction. Like no one's expecting you to produce the most interesting and valuable research when you start. But if it slowly gets better and improves over time, like people take note of that. People appreciate that. And other people who are learning or in their earlier stages, they get value out of that, right? And even the stuff that I produce now, it's all based on my own experience. Like I don't claim to be an expert by any means, right? Like I only know what I've seen. I only know what I've experienced, and there's plenty of other things out there. And I've interviewed almost 100 people on my podcast, and they're sharing their unique experiences, and that's making me hopefully a better data scientist, a better speaker, whatever it is, because I get access to their knowledge, and I get to share that and communicate that. And so to me, like those are all different ways where you're creating value for someone else that gives someone a reason to tune into your content, right? It doesn't have to be this like, oh, I know what to do, I am an expert on this, here's the information. People, for the most part, don't even really like that type of content, right?
Right.
People like it when it's personal and they can feel and they can relate to it.
That's awesome, Ken. And by the way, for our live audience, do post any questions you have as we go along here, because I certainly have plenty, but I want to get your questions as well. Yeah, and Ken, I love that because it doesn't matter if I'm involved in interviewing a data scientist or machine learning or data expert, but something we kind of do at scale. For ODSC, we have a content committee. They recommend speakers. We've got speaker submissions, and we're looking at extremely qualified people, much better qualified than I am to speak on a lot of these topics. And, we're looking at their LinkedIn, looking at their profile. They might have published a paper, something like that, but we're almost certainly looking at the content they created, like, on YouTube, what's out there on YouTube, what blogs they've written, what they're commenting on Twitter. Because, it's almost like establishing credibility. Like what we're trying to figure out, if this person wants to talk on topic X, have they shown credibility in it, right? And that's the great thing about this. So can you talk a little bit about creating content? Because that to a lot of people may be intimidating. It sounds like a lot of work, but one of my tricks used to be, as you learn, teach other people, teach as you go kind of stuff. But yeah, so any, I know there's no shortcuts, but any insights you can share there?
Yeah, I mean, so something I want to touch on before that is what you just described with what you guys are doing at ODSC, right? You're using the content and the brand and you're like quantifying it in some sense. And now this should be exciting for data scientists. You can quantify your brand. You can quantify it in followers, you can viewership, in engagement, all these different things. All right. And so it's no longer this amorphous kind of fuzzy thing. Like your brand, you can measure how much of an impact and how much of a reach it has. You can measure how many effectively opportunities it can create, or how many people it can reach with the message you want, or to, like with the idea of potentially landing you a job or any of these types of things, right? It is, I wouldn't say it's pure math, but it's like a quantifiable thing. And data scientists like quantifiable things, right? In that sense, like how do you go about creating a brand? So about a year and a half ago, I started this initiative called the 66 Days of Data. And so the idea is that data science habits are what's really important. Like you're never going to learn the whole domain of data science, right? It's really important to get into like a daily learning practice or something like that, so you can slowly chip away at this base of knowledge and grow with it as the field continues to grow. What you do is you study data science for at least 6 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, and then you post what you learned or what you studied on your favorite social platform. Great, right? That does a couple things, right? So you're creating that learning habit. You're creating a habit of sharing your work, right? You're building a brand. And there have been plenty of people who just from doing that challenge, they're getting a lot of engagement. They're part of this community. I mean, that's a really big thing. And the last thing is you're getting accountability associated with that, right? So this community is holding you accountable. If you're posting or not, but the community also knows, and they'll give you a friendly reminder here and there to make sure that you're on track.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're sharing with your like friends, right? You're sharing with a community, it's less intimidating, right? And that's the atmosphere you want to have. I mean, the way I look at it is like on YouTube, on LinkedIn, like those people are my friends, right? They're my group. I'm creating things that I think or hope that they'll find interesting. I mean, some of them aren't always super nice, and that's okay. Like that's the kind of the nature of it. If you're worried about that, just post on LinkedIn, because everyone has a face and everyone's accountable, right? And I generally think LinkedIn is probably one of the better platforms for that. But
Right.
it's all about sharing your experiences. I mean, I am not one. I kind of get awkward when I share success. I know I'm like kind of supposed to share like, oh, I hit this milestone of subscribers or something like that, and I do it. But those are the ones that feel awkward to me. It feels less
Yeah,
awkward
yeah,
to me when I'm talking about, oh, someone else's success, or I'm talking about like sharing work that I'm really passionate about, or I'm sharing a video that I made that's meant to convey significantly more value for other people. I think that once you get past that barrier, that's something that can really set you free, right? So let's say I
yeah.
produce a lot of content. Let's say I've made 100 videos now. Do you think I'm as nervous about posting the 101st video as I was about the first video? Absolutely not, right? Your body of work at a certain point of time, like even
Yeah.
after 66 days, like your body of work speaks for the quality of work you do, not an individual piece of content. And
Right.
that's a really important idea, is that once we reach this certain threshold, we get less and less worried about sharing, because
Right.
our value is based on our brand, not based on our singular works that we produce. And so once you reach that milestone, which is something I think everyone should strive for, that's how you sort of break free from the content fear of posting and these types of things.
No, that's great. And yeah, so when you spoke at ODSC West, you had a pretty good motivating example, because I'm sure myself included, we're not quite as prolific when it comes to creating content as you are, Ken. So can you give us a motivating example of like one of your earlier, I think you give a great example of one of your first videos. So, the 101st video aside, like when you're in your first couple of videos, can you give us some insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at my first video to my, let's say 101st video, right? I've made unbelievable leaps and bounds in terms of my communication skills, my ability to frame a conversation or an argument. I've changed as a person and as a creator, and that's something I think is really important, is that you're continuing to grow and you're continuing to evolve. My first video that I ever made was like an accident. I made it for my one of my deep learning classes, and we had to do a presentation at the end of the quarter. I
Class you
uploaded
were
it to
taking, by the way.
a
Sorry.
class I was taking, yes.
You
And
were
so
taking,
I
right? You're not
uploaded it to
teaching.
YouTube
Yeah.
so I could send it in, because YouTube is great free storage, right?
Right.
And it's the best way to share video. And so I don't think about it. I didn't know you could make an unlisted video then, where only people that had the link could see it. And I
Yeah.
go away for 3 months, don't think about it at all. And then one day I'm back on, I just check YouTube. I wasn't a huge consumer of YouTube either at the time. And I see that this video, it had like 1,000 views. It had, I'd gained maybe 100 or so subscribers. And to me, that was astronomical. Like I never thought anyone would watch this presentation that I put together. But I realized that, hey, people have an appetite for this. People are interested in these topics. People, like, they don't always want experts to explain something. They want to just like understand a topic or domain in layman's terms a lot of the time. And I realized that, hey, maybe I could, first, I loved making the video. It was fun. I'm like that nerdy kid that likes doing the projects and stuff. Like I
Nice.
really enjoyed school and learning. But I also thought that, hey, I'm going through this thing where I'm trying to land a data science job, or I just did land a data science job. And I was coming from a consulting background. Wouldn't it be useful to other people that had a similar experience to have more of a roadmap? Because I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, should I try this? Should I try this? Should I go back to school? Should I not go back to school? Should I do all these things? And I really wanted to help people like that were in that same situation as I was, 2 years previous. And I just started making videos, and people started watching them eventually. But it wasn't until after 50 or so videos that I even maybe got like 1,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just putting a lot out there and sharing your story. The beauty of it, though, is that every job interview that I went to, I had 3 interviews for grad student internships. Every single one of them had somehow found that video and asked me about it. Right?
Perfect. Yeah.
This is before I had any traction, before I had any of this stuff. And that instilled in me how powerful this content is, especially if they're searching for your name, right? If they're looking for you, what are people going to find? Right? I mean, there's
Exactly,
this
which
whole other side.
every hiring manager does. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole other side of like making people come to you, right? but you want to
Yeah.
be the like number one search item, or you want interesting stuff that you put together to be the number one thing that pops up when people search, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that to me is like a very cool way to carve out a, you know, a corner of the internet and create a brand for yourself. Is like, when people are looking, what are they going to find? You want them to find cool stuff. Trust me.
Yeah, so I'd love to expand that because I'm sure that'll be of interest to our audience. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or looking for your first job or looking for your next job. You might be an experienced data science principal, data sciences, but yeah, definitely walk us through a little more about how branding helps in the job search and that push versus pull you're talking about. And by the way, while you do that, I got to check some of my technical difficulties here. But go ahead and answer that question, Ken. And don't worry if I disappear for 2 seconds.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So I look at, I use a really kind of strange analogy, and that is of gravity, right? So the larger a planet is, the more mass it has, the more gravity it has. And we can look at our brand in a very similar way. So our brand is something that, as it grows, it creates pull towards us of opportunities that we want, whether it's job opportunities, speaking opportunities like this, whether it's contract opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities. They're out there because you're, the content that you're producing, it's working for you. Like when you sleep, it's working for you all the time. It's being shared by a bunch of these algorithms, all these different things, right? And that's something really cool. We talk kind of bad about, the TikTok algorithm or the Instagram algorithm or the YouTube algorithm. But all these things, they like share your content for you, right? Like I don't have to do anything. If I put my stuff on
Right.
one of these platforms, the algorithm pushes it for you if it's decent.
That's very true. Yeah.
Right. So I'm outsourcing a lot of my self-marketing to these platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Medium. Like all of these platforms are designed to perpetuate your content. So by just like putting stuff out there, the reach that you have, the mass of your brand that you have, it grows and grows without you really having to do anything. That is the advantage that we have on planets, is like there,
Right.
unless you're looking at like really, really long periods of time, right? And so my focus is on just creating these really small incremental wins, right? If I'm like slowly producing more and more content, there's this compounding effect of gravity around me that I create. And anything you put into the world, it'll reach X amount of people. There's a small percent chance that person reaches out to you, or that there's like a really good value relationship, but that chance is there and it's still growing. You're creating this like structured serendipity, as I call it, right? The likelihood that a positive event occurs, it goes up very incrementally, just every time that you put something else out there and other people can see it.
That's right.
So rather than like direct application where it's one-on-one, this is the opportunity I want, when you're putting a lot of these things out there, opportunities you didn't even know you wanted could come to you, right? How powerful is that I didn't know that I didn't even know about this role, but it came to me and it's a perfect fit, right? How wild is that
That's right.
is a
That's
possibility?
awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
You're expanding just beyond just your own world and your like present body of knowledge, and you're allowing for things that are outside of that could be the best opportunity possible to come to you. I mean, if we're looking at it like a kind of a simulation, we're going from like a closed circuit and opening up that circuit. It makes even more infinite possibilities accessible. And so I don't know. I look at brand as just a strong brand as a way to open up your world, open up your opportunity set to things that you didn't even realize were possible. And to me, I mean, I've had some unbelievable opportunities come from that, whether it's
Yeah.
sponsorships, whether it's speaking. Never would have thought.
Exactly. And then tie in, again, at the end of the day, a job's a job, but tie in your passion to that. And if you, because when I remember, I think you said it yourself actually better than I did, but people tend to hire people who are passionate about their career, passionate about their role, and building your brand is a way of sharing that passion and helping get yourself and other people inspired. But a key question for you, Ken, is you're obviously an extremely well-spoken individual. So even though, well, let me put it this way, English is my first language, but when I first came to the US to study engineering here in Boston, because I had a very heavy Irish accent at the time, and people still tell me to speak slow, and I tell them, well, you need to think faster. But that aside, you're quite well spoken. So what advice do you have for those of us who English may not be our first language? Like, how do we practice our communication skills? How do we, when it comes to sharing, videos, speaking at meetups, virtual meetups, things like that? Any insights, tips along those lines?
Yeah, honestly, I highly encourage anyone to speak in front of audiences, speak in a podcast format, speak in a video format, any of these things. I have not always been well spoken, right? There's things that I always try to improve upon. And that's one of the reasons why I started making YouTube videos. I told you this story the other day where one of my first interviews in grad school, there was just a question prompt on the screen and I had to record my response. And I did the recording and I watched it back and I said, who the heck is this guy? I would never hire this person. He's so awkward, so uncomfortable, stumbled over his words all the time. And then, there's one other second shot that you get. And the second shot was worse than the first, right? Yeah. And so I said, okay, how do I practice that skill set, right? Well, I could sit in front of a camera and record myself talking to the camera, right? And why not just talk on a subject I'm interested in and put that video on YouTube, right? There's nothing better to hold you accountable than if someone else is going to see this. And it can be a little stressful, right? I mean, but again, what I talked about before is if people can see you improve over time, that's a really powerful thing, right? Like no one judges you if you're bad at first. If you're bad and you don't get better after hundreds of videos or if you've tried a lot, that's something to be a little bit worried about, right? And so, I wanted to improve my communication skills, my interpersonal skills. I started talking to more data scientists. I started interviewing them on the podcast format. And I've been able to dramatically improve my communication skills, just talking and conversation. And I've also reduced the number of stop words that I use because I watch the podcast, I watch the video feedback back to get that feedback loop. Right. So this content creation process and this brand building process can be used to develop a lot of these other skills and be a very specific way to train these softer skills. I also think that writing is unbelievably important. You work in a mostly spoken medium platform, right?
Right.
But the majority of communication at work is written, whether it's emails, whether it's Slack, whatever it is. And you can showcase those skills by writing blogs. You can showcase those skills in a lot of different ways. Even if someone has a very efficient, tweeting system, where they tweet a lot, or on any of these platforms, that's conveying information via text, right? And that's an important skill, right? Like that's something that you should showcase. That's something that you should highlight, because to get people to listen to something or pay attention to something that you read is a skill in and of itself. And so, I actually go all the way. I think even like a round of the job interview should be held over Slack or Microsoft Teams or something, right? Because that's how we actually communicate. If you can communicate effectively through that platform, you'll probably be a good fit if other boxes are checked. So to that point, I think that why just use this for creating your brand? Use it to upskill yourself. Use the projects and those types of things to get feedback that you're sharing, and use that to leverage into a role or whatever it is. I mean, there's so many opportunities associated with this. I mean, like brand is so much bigger than just, hey, do projects and talk about these things. Exactly. There's so much nuance and there's so much fun to discover associated with it that, as you can tell, I get really excited talking about this because
absolutely. I'm kind of lightning interviews, so we have to kind of be respectful to the title and wrap this up. But again, I would just drive home the point to our audience because, for ODSC and a lot of organizations out there, we're very data driven, but we're looking at lots of different career roles, whether it's a data analyst, data scientist, machine learning engineer, AI experts. And the common skill we see across all those job descriptions, and, we're parsing these and, with NLP and whatnot, obviously communication. So I really can't stress this enough. And I really think you've given us some fantastic insights, Ken. I do hope people take this to heart, because myself, early in my career, very much behind the monitor, just heads down coding all the time, and wasn't out there building my brand. So I really found this useful myself as well. So wrapping up, Ken, top 3 tips for building your brand? Want to reiterate those?
Yeah. So first, thank you so much for having me on. This has been so much fun. A couple of things that I think are really important is just putting yourself out there. So like starting and posting something, right? The other is thinking about what type of value you're going to create for other people, whether you're going to share your story, whether you're going to share the things you're working on, whether you're going to just aggregate information and pass it forward. That's really important. The last thing that I didn't really touch on is what medium you're going to choose. So obviously I choose YouTube as a platform. Not everyone is comfortable with that, and that is totally fine. If you're looking to land a job, LinkedIn is probably going to be your best friend, right? If you want to share information via blog or anything like that, Medium is a really good idea. And so matching the platform to the specific goals that you have is really important. And I think, aside from that, it's just thinking about how you can upskill yourself in the soft skills as well, right? This isn't a world where we can't quantify these things anymore. Like we can quantify our brand, we can quantify how well we speak, we can quantify how well we write, and that's all done through a lot of these social platforms. So, you might as well leverage them and use the algorithms to your favor as much as you can. And they really can help you. I mean, I've made a pretty good career out of the content that I produce, as well as my, day job and my normal career. I mean, and that is not something that's for everyone. I can tell you that. But, the upside in my mind is limitless from putting something on the internet. The downside is relatively hedged, like what the worst case scenario is, right?
Exactly.
So I think that that's an important thing to consider is like, why not, right? Like a lot of the fears and concerns you have are not, they're not nearly as bad as you think they might be.
Very, very true. So Ken, a lot of people, including myself, very, very impressed with your insights. So where can we find you? Definitely want to follow you and do more. So tell us a bit about your podcast, your YouTube channel, all that good stuff, because this has been great.
Of course. Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, just my name, Ken space Jee. My podcast is Ken's Nearest Neighbors. A lot of people get a kick out of the name. It was actually crowdsourced. And there I interview a different data scientist or someone related to the data science domain every week. And it's very much about their journey into the field, how they made a lot of their career and life decisions, and kind of the frameworks that they use to make decisions, which I think is very fun. Sometimes we talk about their work, sometimes we talk about job tips, but I really like just getting to know and learn new people. And to me, that's arguably more valuable, the experiences and the life experiences that they have compared to just their data experiences. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. Also, my name, Ken Jee. If you Google me, I hope I'm the first one that pops up.
Yes, you should be. You've been building your brand. Done an awesome job on that. Well, Ken, it's been wonderful to have you. So great to have you. So happy holidays. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be following what you're doing and hope to connect in person at one of these conferences in 2022. And definitely going to keep an eye on what you're doing and would love to have you back.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on. I'd love to have you on the podcast as well. So it's out in the world now in public. So
I'm sure you got a long list of better qualified people than me. So I'll get on the waiting list because very, very impressed with what you've been doing. Ken, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have an awesome one.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We're slightly over time, but I just want to end with a few quick slides here. I know Irene has been giving you some information, so I hope you enjoyed that this lightning interview. We plan to be doing many, many more of these in January, February, March. We're going to be inviting on some pretty famous book authors, lots of career advice from beginners to experts. So here's some of the sessions coming up, lots of free webinars coming up that you may be interested in. And also in addition to that, if you're looking to build out your data science and machine learning skill sets, we have some live training coming up on AI Plus as well. And don't forget about AI Plus careers. If you're looking for a job in the job field, I think we've got about 60 or 70 open jobs there at the moment, and lots of companies hiring. And then also ODSC East is back. We had a very successful hybrid event on the West Coast San Francisco last month. So we're hoping to replicate that success. We're back at the Boston Hines Convention Center in person. That will require everyone to be vaccinated, wearing masks and all that stuff. It's going to be a pretty small, intimate event. And then we'll also have the virtual conference going on as well. And that's going to be in mid-April. And if you are looking to start your career, like do a boot camp, do a course, I would highly recommend our mini boot camp. Again, it's a really good way to get an idea of, is this career for you? There's a lot of courses. It's what we call accelerated learning. So you'll learn Python programming, you'll learn SQL, you'll learn some data engineering. And that's kind of like day one, which is virtual, and then either in person or virtual again. You'll get into more advanced topics like, pandas for data science, TensorFlow, PyTorch, all the frameworks and tools that are used within data science. So, it's a relatively inexpensive, intensive way to get hands-on training for 4 days and a great way to, before you head into a degree or a master's program or even a longer boot camp, just to get a feel for what data science is like. And that's been pretty popular. It was one of our best-selling tickets for ODSC West. So I do hope you will get a chance to check that out. And don't forget also to log on to AIplus.training. It's AIPLUS.TRAING, just as it's spelled there. And lots of free content on there. You'll find these recordings are on there as well. Some content from our previous conferences, like our keynotes, topics and stuff like that. And there's also a paid version as well. So whatever suits your budget, you can find it on there. And once again, thank you for sharing. Thanks for joining us. Happy holidays. Hope you're staying safe and healthy. And we'll see you on the next one soon.